Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Larry O'Connor, very pleased to have on the line Maryland Congressman Chris Van Hollen. Mr. Van Hollen, how are you today?
I'm fine. Good to be with you, Brian and Larry.
It's always good to have you on the show, Congressman. Okay, the topic, there's only two topics in Washington right now. One is the Washington Redskins and RG3, and the other one is, are we going to go over the fiscal cliff? As I look at things right now, it sort of looks like there's not a lot going on in those negotiations. Am I right or wrong about that?
Well, first let me say, obviously, the good news story of those two right now is RG3.
Yeah, don't we all? Yeah.
Look, as you probably heard, the President and the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, did have a follow-up phone call just the other day. And I think that's a positive step forward. You had the President lay out his plan in detail. You had the Speaker put something on paper, not a lot of detail, but something on paper, followed up by the phone call. So I still believe there's better than 50-50 chance that we get this done, get an agreement, and prevent us from going over the fiscal cliff by the end of the year.
Now, I know you saw what happened in the United States Senate yesterday when Mitch McConnell took to the floor and said, all right, Democrats, the president has laid a proposal on the table. I'm going to allow you a straight up or down vote on that. We're going to attach it to this Russian trade bill we're discussing. And let's just go ahead and have your vote. And, Harry Reid walks out to the Senate floor and stops that from happening. And the only conclusion you can draw from that is that the Democrats couldn't even get enough votes to pass the president's plan.
Well, I don't interpret that that way at all for this reason. And I'd be happy to support the president's plan, just for the record. What you need to do is actually have a piece of legislation. I mean, you can't have a framework. That's not a piece of legislation. I'm not even sure exactly what Mitch McConnell put up or said he would have put up for a vote. I mean, that does go in the category of political stunts. Again, I'll just be clear. I mean, I support the plan the president's put on the table. I think the overwhelming number of Democrats in Congress would as well. So I'm not quite sure what happened there in the Senate.
Representative Van Hollen is our guest from the Maryland's 8th District, and you say you support the president's plan, but part of the president's plan is that the executive branch, not President Obama personally, but whoever the president is, whoever is sitting in the Oval Office, has the right to, on their own, without consulting Congress, has the right to increase the debt ceiling. Now, as a congressman, aren't you concerned that that violates your role as the Congress, as articulated by the first article of the Constitution?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question. First of all, the proposal the president put forward would allow the Congress to override the president's veto. The president's decision is subject to a veto, so you would need a supermajority in Congress to override the president's decision to up the debt limit. This is why this is a really important issue. The debt limit simply is a chance for Congress to say, I really meant it. We really meant it, because the debt ceiling is raised simply to pay for obligations that Congress has already voted for, right? I mean, this is really important to understand. It would be like you and I getting up one morning and saying, you know what, we entered into that mortgage before, but we're not going to pay it today. Or you and I go out shopping with our credit card, we buy stuff, we like it, and we say, you know what, we're not going to pay for it. The Congress is one of the only legislative bodies in the world that gets to have this kind of do-over on what they already voted for. Every item of it that we have to pay for when we lift the debt ceiling is an item that has already been approved by previous Congresses. And that's why it's such a politically and economically explosive thing. Because
I get that it's economically explosive. I really do understand that. But isn't that sort of the point, that you got to come back and make sure it was a good decision, and that you have to reflect upon, okay, that's what they did then, but here are the economic realities today which are different. Maybe we need to not do this. I mean, isn't that sort of a check and balance in the system?
Yeah.
No, because it would be as if you and I came back and said, you know what, we're not going to pay our mortgage. It's not that we want to renegotiate our mortgage. It's not that we want to refinance.
But if I have a mortgage and I can't make the payment, then I have to make some tough decisions.
Right.
Yeah, but one of your decisions is not to default on your mortgage.
Well, it may be. It may be that's the only decision I have. But I mean, I'm not saying we should default. But I guess I'm saying that it makes me stop and realize I got a problem here. I have to deal with it in some way, and it sort of brings people back to a point where they have to stop and think about how much money we're actually spending, and it's money we don't have.
Well, there's no doubt we've got a problem, and it shouldn't take a vote on the debt ceiling to be able to figure out that we've got a problem, which is exactly why we need to come up with a balanced long-term deficit reduction plan that combines cuts with revenue. And I believe that the framework set forward by bipartisan groups like Simpson-Bowles, like Rivlin Domenici, is exactly the right kind of framework. I support their combination of cuts and revenues.
Okay, but Representative Van Hollen, there's one other element of the president's plan in this balanced approach that you're not mentioning. You're talking about cuts in revenue. What about the spending? He wants to actually increase spending in this with additional stimulus. You're behind that?
Well, no, he doesn't. Let's put this in perspective. What he says is he will continue to implement the over $1 trillion in cuts that we adopted in the Budget Control Act. And remember, that was 100% cuts. There were no revenues as part of that. And at the time, the president and others indicated that we would have to come back and do the revenue piece of that to put that into some balance. So you've got $1 trillion in cuts over the next 10 years we have to continue to implement. Second, the president's most recent proposal has $600 billion in additional savings on top of the revenues that he's got in it. On all sorts of things like ending a lot of the excessive agricultural subsidies, these direct payments to farmers, asking pharmaceutical companies for higher rebates with respect to Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. So he's got a whole list of cuts. As you know, Speaker Bader put forward a proposal with aggregate numbers, both for revenue and cuts, but has not spelled out in any detail what they would be.
Let me ask you this, though, because at the end of the day, you're talking about raising taxes on couples that make $250,000 a year or more. You know, in the Washington, D.C. area and in your own congressional district, that could be a cop and a nurse who've been in their jobs for a number of years. That's not a very wealthy couple.
No, they're not wealthy. They are obviously higher income even in this area. Just to be clear, the proposal would keep the tax relief in place on the first $250,000 of income. So all those taxpayers would still benefit from the lower marginal rates below $250,000. I want to make that clear. As a result, 100% of families and 100% of small businesses do get continued tax cuts on their first $250,000.
But you're comfortable taking that back to your voters who you know, a lot of people make that kind of money in the Washington D.C. area. If it's a two-family, two workers within the family, you're comfortable telling them that they're going to have to pay more. You have no problem with that.
That's asking them to go back to paying the same top rate on the income above $250,000 that they were paying when President Clinton was president.
All right. Hey, Congressman, quick trash talk to your colleague Elijah Cummings, who's the Ravens congressman. You're the Redskins congressman. Big week this week. Quickly, trash talk.
Well, look, there's no doubt RG3 is going to roll right over.
All right.
Now, if it comes down to those guys, I'm rooting for the Ravens all the way until they play the Redskins.
That's right. Okay, fair enough. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate it.
Good to be with you.